Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to DC Comics Deck Building Game by Cryptozoic. So I got a little video you can also check out that kind of explains all the different sets, the different ways to play the game between all the different sets, because there's base game, a crisis, rival, rebirth, a lot of different stuff you can play, different ways you can play. And I kind of did I'm gonna admit, a butchered version of how to play the game. I just went through the basics of it, so I don't want to go through it, rehash it every time. But the base concept of the play the game is like most deck building games, everyone starts with the same hand. You use those cards to buy new cards to increase your deck to differentiate you from the other players. Then you play those new cards to buy more cards, so on and so forth, until you have enough to defeat whatever the final villain is of the game. And that's the core of it. Couple of things that make this one stand out versus some of the other ones is there's a shared deck versus Marvel, which has like a villain deck you fight and then like your cards you buy. There's only one central power, so it makes it a little bit easier to get in. I usually use this to teach deck building, and then I go to Marvel because every card just has power versus some have attack, some have buying power. So it makes it a little bit less management for people that don't play games as often. There's some versus aspects to it, which that's the only downside. That makes it a little bit harder to teach. Not harder to teach, but harder to play as a game. You're like, okay, but now you have attack cards. You have to hurt one of your friends. Alright, but let's hop into this. It's not going to be a true unboxing because I've already unboxed this a long time ago. I just didn't realize I hadn't made any videos for it. So to start off, with the DC game, another big difference is everyone gets an oversized hero card. Oversized because compared to a regular card, it's, a little bit bigger. Not super, super big. Downside, it makes it hard to find sleeves. Upside, you don't really have to shuffle these, but as you can see, mine are kind of getting dinged up a bit. So I have to figure out some way to get some sleeves on these just so they don't get too banged up. Yeah, each player, tip this down a little bit. Each player gets to pick one different hero, and it kind of helps you get a little extra bonus at the beginning of the game or throughout the game. But it also kind of dictates sort of how you're going to play or what cards you're going to go after. So here we have Batman, and he has +1 power for each equipment you play during your turn. So every time you play an equipment card, you're going to gain 1 extra power to buy new cards or attack a villain or do whatever. So that's cool, but it's also going to make you want to get more Batman themed cards like Batmobile, Robin, stuff like that, like Wayne Manor or I think it's Wayne. I don't know if it's Wayne Manor. This is Arkham Asylum. But cards like that that are themed around Batman tend to be more ones that work with equipment. So you kind of tailor your deck that direction. You don't have to, but then you're losing some of your bonuses. We get Green Lantern. This is Hal Jordan. If you play 3 or more cards with different names and cost 1 or more during your turn, you gain 3 power. So as long as you play cards that aren't your starting cards, which cost 0, you can gain extra power for kind of differentiating your cards a bit, not having the same exact card over and over. Get the Boy Scout Superman. +1 power for each different superpower you play during your turn. So, Batman gets it for equipment, Superman gets it for superpowers, which makes sense. Someone wants to focus right. Cyborg. If you played 1 or more superpower during your turn, gain +1 power. If you played 1 or more equipment, draw a card. So you kind of get the mix between the two. So, where Batman and Superman are each going to gain more for each card you play, he's only going to gain 1 power. But you can also draw a card. So, he gets a little here, little there. The Flash. You get to go first, so you gain a bonus of that. The first time a card tells you to draw 1 or more cards during each of your turns, draw an additional card. So, he lets you get through your cards quicker, which makes sense for Flash. Aquaman. You may put any cards with a cost of 5 or less you buy or gain during your turn on top of your deck. So Aquaman gets the advantage of if you purchase something, you get to use it right away on your next turn, which is definitely an advantage. As long as it's a 5 or higher, so you can't buy a really cheap card. So his doesn't. So unlike Batman or Superman, which could benefit you on turn like 2, 3, 4, or whenever you get in there, Aquaman's is gonna take a while. But then once he gets in there, you buy an 8-cost card, you can use it right away on your next turn. Versus someone else buys an 8-cost card, goes in their discard pile. They have to wait till their deck runs out to shuffle it. Then they have to hope to draw it. So there's sort of that give and take. Later in the game, Aquaman becomes super powerful. And then Wonder Woman, for each villain you buy or gain, draw an extra card at the end of your turn. So every time you defeat villains, Wonder Woman gets more powerful. So that's your initial lineup of 7 characters. And you can choose not to play these if you don't want to, if you want to like maybe just play the game normally. So before we start looking at all the special cards, we're going to look at the starter cards. So everyone's going to get a hand that's going to have some punches, and there's a bunch of different ones, because there's a... So I want to say you start with like 7 cards, and I think it's like 4 of these, 3 of the vulnerabilities. I think that's usually how it's played. So this is just a starter card. It doesn't have any extra things. It's going to gain bonuses. Gives you 1 power, no VP, no cost. So if you have cards in your deck that let you get rid of stuff, these are the cards you're going to want to try and focus on. Because you can, if you get rid of them, cards only do 1, and you're always drawing something that does 1 plus an effect, or 2, or whatever, it's better. You also start with vulnerabilities, which you want to get rid of first, because they don't do anything. They're just useless cards that sit in your hand. So this is one big difference between the Marvel and DC, is that Marvel does have wound cards that don't do stuff, but they have their own way of getting rid of them by just not doing stuff during your turn. This one, you start with bad cards, and if you gain them, you have to play another card that lets you gain them. But there are more cards in this one that let you destroy things. Then we can also get weakness, which is Joker's gross mouth. So these are cards you'll pick up later throughout the game, which work like vulnerabilities, except you get -1 victory point. And that's where like the not cooperative, competitive mode comes in, because as you play through the game, you're still trying to beat the boss, beat the various supervillains, but you can try and accumulate the most victory points, which obviously, if you played other older deck building games, something like Dominion, there's a viable way of, rather than trying to buy the most expensive cards, you could buy a ton of small cards and try and win that way. But the thing is, if I buy 5 small cards and I have 5 points, and my opponent beats 2 cards that are worth 3 each, they're already up by 1, because, more powerful cards get you better abilities. And then there's kicks, which give you 2 power, have 1 VP, they cost 3, and this is like the permanent deck that sits out. So this is always face up, so you can always buy this. If you don't have anything from the lineup, or you don't need, you can always get this. This also makes Superman a little bit more powerful, or even Cyborg a little bit more helpful too, because right off your first turn, you have access to a superpowered card no matter what. Alright, let's hop in and look at the other cards. So, in your lineup, you're going to have all these different cards. We're going to have heroes. We're going to have red villain cards. We're going to have more orange superpowered cards. We're going to have the gray equipment cards. We're going to have the pink location cards. And then eventually there's villain cards. So all these cards get mixed in together as the main deck. If you defeat any of them, you buy any of them for their cost, or if you defeat them, if they're a villain, they go into your discard pile, then you draw them. So here's our various effects. So I don't know why this just doesn't want to focus right. That's better. Alright, so we have a Supergirl, who says you may put 1 kick card from the kick stack into your hand. So when you play her, you get a free kick card. She doesn't do anything normally, but you get a free kick. But if you're playing Superman, which Supergirl ties to, when you play that kick, you'll also gain an additional power. So it's kind of helpful there. But you also don't want to load your deck up with too many of the kicks. Catwoman just gives you 2 power for 2 cost. Kid Flash just lets you draw a card. A bunch of those. So now any of the main heroes you could play, they have a card in here as well, but they didn't use their regular names. They gave them like a title or like a version of them. And I think that's just because that way you're playing an aspect of that character or to them helping out versus actually that character themselves. There's not as much thematic stuff in this game as there's like versus like the Marvel one. The Marvel, you're really playing thematic where you're playing, I'm playing these 5 heroes, they're trying to beat this villain, doing this thing, here are the villains we specifically picked, they're trying to stop. This one's just, here's all these cards that are laying here. You just see a lot more different characters and different items and stuff from the DC universe, but there's really no theme going on. Because you'd be like, oh, it's Justice League trying to stop that, but why am I playing Flash? What's Flash doing? Because you play a villain card, they do the same thing. The crisis modes, which are another expansion, they make it a little bit more because you have little crises you're trying to beat, but it's still overall the same thing. You're just playing cards for power, trying to beat them. There's no really theming to it as much, but that's fine. It's still a fun game. King of Atlantis. You may destroy a card in your discard pile. If you do, +3 power, otherwise 1. So this lets you get rid of them starting cards or weaknesses. The Dark Knight. 2 power, gain all equipment in the lineup. Then, if you have played or have played Catwoman this turn, you may put a card you bought or gained into your hand this turn. So they're teamed up with Catwoman, plus you gain all the free equipment. The Fastest Man Alive, Flash. You draw 2 cards. And drawing cards is helpful because then you get more power during a turn, but it's also again a risk because you can draw 2 cards and draw 2 starter cards or 2 weaknesses or vulnerabilities. So that way it's kind of a waste. Robin, +1, putting equipment from your discard pile to your hand. And a note for this is, remember, anytime you buy a card, it goes to your discard pile. So you could play this in combination with something else, buy a brand new card, then put that card that you bought a previous, not the one you probably bought with him, but one you bought previously in the turn, into your hand. Here we have John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, which I feel like I should have had his card, but it seems like he's missing, so maybe he's on the next set, maybe he got mixed in. Play the top card of the supervillain stack, then return it to the stack. So you gain the ability of the superhero, or the supervillain, which is could be really powerful. So now there's Supergirl, some more Kid Flashes, Zantara, +1 power. You may look at the top 2 cards of your discard pile. You may put up to 2 cards from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck. So that can help, especially if your deck is running low. Another Catwoman, more Robins. Swamp Thing. If you control a location, 5 power, otherwise 2. Mera. If your discard pile is empty, +4 power, otherwise +2. Green Arrow. 2 power. At the end of the game, if you have 4 or more other heroes in your deck, this card is worth 5 VP. So you can see down there. So this one's definitely more powerful if you buy a bunch of heroes. Blue Beetle. He has +3 power and he has defense. So reveal this card from your hand to avoid an attack. It stays in your hand. So lots of the villain cards, especially the super villains you fight, will have attack effects which do negative things to other players. You can show this card to block that. So as long as it's in your hand during one of the other players' turns, that's helpful. Princess Diana of Themyscira. Gain all villains with a cost of 7 or less in the lineup. These power cards are devastating. High-Tech Hero. If you have played a superpower or equipment this turn, +3, otherwise +1. The Man of Steel, +3, and put all superpowers from your discard into your hand. So Superman comes out, he's probably going to wreck stuff. Green Lantern, the Emerald Knight. Remove an equipment, hero, or superpower from the lineup. Play it, then return it to the lineup at the end of your turn. One of these potentially powerful cards, because you could get lucky and play Superman if he's in the lineup, but you also might get like a Catwoman. It's only worth 2 power. Oh, that's an equipment card. We'll toss him back over there. It's another high-tech hero. Swamp Thing, Mira, high-tech hero, Zatanna, Robin, Green Arrow, and Catwoman. Alright, now let's look at the villains. So these play on the table the exact same way. They do the exact same thing. You buy them, you play them, Poison Ivy gives you +1, but lots of them have attacks. So hers would be each foe discards the top card of their deck. If it costs 1 or greater, they gain a weakness. So this is where the competitive mode comes in. Because you're going to hurt other players, weakening their decks. If you play the attacks, you have to play these cards, you have to use the attacks. So that kind of makes Wonder Woman against all the other players, because she gains bonuses for buying villains. You're going to want to buy them. But if you're playing the Crisis expansion, when you buy the villain cards, they don't go in your decks. So that adds more of the cooperative mode to it. Bane, +2 power. Each foe chooses and discards a card. Cheetah, gain any card with a cost of 4 or less from the lineup. The Riddler, you may pay 3 power. If you do, gain the top card of the main deck. Use this ability any number of times this turn. If you choose not to, +1 power instead. Clayface, choose a card you played this turn, play it again. That's definitely cool. Copies abilities. Doomsday, just 4 power. Grodd, 3 power. Gorilla Grodd. Two-Face, +1 power. Choose odd or even or odd, then reveal the top card of your deck. If it cost matches your choice, draw it. If not, discard it. 0 is even. A little bit of gambling effects there. Scarecrow, +2 power. Each foe gains a weakness. Starro, attack. Each foe discards the top card of his deck. You may play each non-location discarded this way. It's actually pretty powerful. You can potentially powerful, depending on what they get rid of. The Penguin, draw 2 cards, then choose and discard 2 cards from your hand. Solomon Grundy, when you buy or gain a villain this turn, you may put him on top of your deck, then 3 power. Bizarro, +3 power. At the end of the game, this card is worth 2 VP for each weakness in your deck. So this is one of them cards where if like you're getting a bunch of weakness, you might want to grab that one. Suicide Squad, there's a bunch of these. So this is a nice one for endgame. If you already played 2 other Suicide Squad cards this turn, each foe discards his hand. So that sucks. At the end of the game, this card is worth 1 VP for each Suicide Squad card in your deck. So if you can gain a bunch of those. We have Lobo, +3 power. You may destroy up to 2 cards in your hand or discard pile. Harley Quinn, +1. Each foe puts a punch or vulnerability from his discard pile on top of their deck. And I think we're going to run a bunch of the same ones. A bunch more Suicide Squads. I think there's like 5 of them. Now this is one thing if you're mixing and matching from other games. One of the other base sets, and you're going to take some cards out from one, some of their Suicide Squad, because I think there's 5 of them, is either keep all 5 Suicide Squads in there or remove all 5 of them. Like, that's kind of your option, because you have to play at least 2 other to gain this power. So if you're not going to have, if you only have 3 in there, it's going to be really hard to get all 3 of them out to get that effect. And for just 2 power, there's other cards that are, you know, in the other decks who would be just as good for that. Alright, I just realized why I don't see Martian Manhunter. He's a promo card. So either I have him, and I don't know where he went, so I couldn't find him, or I've just seen him online enough that I know he's a card. I'm like, oh, I should have that card, because he's mainstay for Justice League. Yeah, so that's that. That's why I don't see Martian Manhunter out, because he was one of the promo cards for probably buying like the first edition of the game or something. Alright, so now we have some superpowers. So we have Heat Vision, 3 power. You may destroy a card in your hand or discard pile. So you can see there's lots of cards in here that let you destroy stuff. Bulletproof. Plus 2 power and a defense. You may discard this card to avoid an attack. If you do, draw a card and you may destroy a card in your discard pile. So now where we had Blue Beetle, if you just said reveal it to avoid the attack. This one makes you discard it, so you lose this card, but you can draw a card and destroy a card in your discard pile. So you don't get to keep the card for the next turn, but the card you draw could potentially be better. Plus you can destroy something else, could be very helpful. We have Super Speed, draw a card. And defense, you may discard this to avoid an attack. If you do, draw 2 cards. So you still gain the bonus, plus you avoid the attack. X-Ray Vision. Each foe reveals the top card of his deck. You may place one of the non-location cards revealed this way this turn, then return it to the top of its owner's deck. So a potentially powerful card could be really weak. Super Strength, plus 5 power. And I think we have a bunch of duplicates. Yep. And they get pretty varied throughout the game. All the different expansions. They usually try and focus them on like that with Superman and Flash. The gadgets are going to be a lot of the others. There's a lot more gadgets in this set. In the next set, there might be more superpowers than equipment. They kind of tried to keep it what made more sense, not necessarily we have to have 7 of these, 7 of these, 7 of these, you know. Alright, so you have Green Arrow's bow. Plus 2 power. Super villains cost 2 less to defeat this turn, so he's definitely powerful. Green Lantern, well, not just green, just a power ring. Reveal the top card of your deck. If it costs 1 or greater, plus 3 power. Otherwise, plus 2. Aquaman's Trident, plus 2 power. You may put any 1 card you buy or gain this turn on top of your deck. It kind of mirrors their effects. Nith Metal, 1 power. Look at the top card of your deck. You may destroy it. This is one of those cards I like. I kind of like to include in everyone's starting hand because it's just a nice way to start off right off the bat. Lasso of Truth. Plus 1 power defense. You may discard this to avoid an attack. If you do, draw a card. The Batmobile. If this is the first card you played this turn, discard your hand, draw 5 cards. Otherwise, plus 1 power. Another bow, some more Nith Metals, a Bat Signal. Plus 1 power. Put a hero from your discard pile into your hand. So this would be great combination with Batman. As you play this card, gain your 1 power. Plus you gain 1 for using Batman. Hero from your discard pile. Oh, I have a Robin in there. So I can play Robin, gain plus 1 power, putting equipment from my discard pile into my hand, put Bat Signal back in there. So now I'm at 3 power. I can play Bat Signal again, 4 power, plus 1 for Batman, 5 power, and I get to put another hero I've played back in play, which could give me 6 plus power. So how crazy is that? You know, that's how Batman combos. Here we have Cape and Cobble. Plus 2 power. Defense. They discard this if you do draw 2 cards. Lasso power. We have the utility belt. At the end of the game, if you have 4 or more other equipment in your deck, this is worth 5 VP. And that might be all the different ones we have. Yep. And then finally we have, before we get to the villains, we have the locations. So these play a little bit differently. You purchase them like normal. They go to your discard pile. When you play them, they stay out and they give you an ongoing effect. The Bat Cave. When you play your first equipment on each of your turns, draw an extra card. So now take that combo I just said. And the first card you play, not only do you get the bonuses from playing the equipment, getting that hero card back out, and getting a bonus from Batman, you also get to draw another card. You know, crazy, right? You can definitely see how someone can play as like Batman or Superman and combine them effects like that and just dominate everything. Versus some of the heroes that have other effects that, you know, need to kind of play off of different things or don't gain bonuses for specific cards. So you have Watchtower. When you play your first hero on each turn, draw a card. Fortress of Solitude. Player for superpower, draw a card. Arkham Asylum, first villain, you get to draw a card. And the Titan Tower, when you play your first card with 2 or 3 on each of your turns, draw a card. Alright, and finally, the last thing we have to go through are the villains. Or the super villains, rather. So, super villains are the same way. They have a cost. They have a lot higher VP. So, getting them works. They work like everything else. They sit separate from the main deck. They sit like up on the top, and you have your row of cards down here. But when you beat them, you gain they go to your deck and you get their power. But they also have special effects while they're out to make them harder. The game always states you start with Ra's al Ghul, or whoever the equivalent is in each set. And you can play them in number order, so you can play like an 8, a 9, a 10, an 11, a 12. Or you could shuffle them together, have random amounts. The thing is, if you end up with like a 12 right off the bat, it's going to make the game a lot harder. And if you start getting, if like you have an 8 at the very end, well, if you've already beaten 10s and 12s, several turns, the 8's not going to provide much of a last person challenge. So they recommend you play at least in numerical order, but each one has at least 2. So you could pick one of these 2s, one of the 11s, one of the 4 different 10s. So you have 2 10s, one of the 9s, one of the 8s. That at least gives you options, so you're not playing the same characters over and over. Pick and choose how many you want for how long you want the game to play. Sometimes when we're playing games, I'll just put like the entire pile down. Hey, if we're doing really well, we'll just see if we can beat them. Or beating them, or barely beating them. Alright, we'll knock it down to 3 characters. Game's taking too long. We just have to beat these 3 guys and then we can quit. Just, how long you want your game to last. At the end of your turn, put this card on the bottom of its owner's deck before drawing a new hand. So that's his special ability. So you get 3 power, and then at the end of your turn, you put him at the bottom of the deck before you draw a new hand. He resurrects. We have Black Manta. Plus 3 power, draw a card. And then his first appearance. So the first time you flip him over as a villain, he doesn't attack. Each player discards the top card of their deck. If you discarded a card with 1 or more cost, destroy it or discard your hand. These first appearances are pretty abusive. Deathstroke. You may gain a hero or villain from the lineup. If you choose not to, gain 3 power. First appearance, attack. Each player reveals his hand and destroys a hero, superpower, or equipment in his hand or discard pile. Captain Cold. Plus 2 power and an additional plus 1 for each foe with a hero in the discard pile. So he could become pretty powerful, potentially. Attack. Each player flips his superhero face down until this villain is defeated, so you can't use your abilities anymore. Atrocitus. 2 power, destroy 2 cards up to 2 cards in your discard pile. First appearance, attack. Each player puts a random card from his hand under a superhero. When the villain is defeated, each player puts those cards back on their owner's deck. So you lose one of your cards, which is random, so you could lose a powerful one. Lex Luthor, draw 3 cards. First appearance, attack. Each player gains a weakness for each villain in the lineup. So if played on the right turn, that could really hurt everybody. Sinestro. Reveal the top card of the main deck. If it's a hero, plus 3 power, then destroy it. Otherwise, put it into your hand. So you gain a free card or 3 power. Attack. Each player reveals his hand and discards a card for each hero they revealed this way. Doesn't have to be that hero, though, which is kind of funny. You could have 3 heroes and discard 3 other cards. We have the Joker. Plus 2 power for, and each foe chooses. He discards a random card or you draw a card. Attack. Each player puts a card from his hand into the discard pile of the player on his left. If the card received has a cost of 1 or greater, put a weakness on top of your deck. Brainiac. Each foe reveals a random card from his hand. Each player play each revealed non-location. And then attack. Each player chooses 2 cards from his hand, puts them on the table face down. Shuffle all the chosen cards face down, and then deal 2 back to each player randomly. So that could mess up some of your strategies. We have Beetle Dark Side. You may destroy 2 cards in your hand. If you do, plus 5 power. Otherwise, plus 3. First appearance. Attack. Each player discards 2 cards unless he reveals a villain from his hand. Parallax from Green Lantern and Sinestro. Double your power this turn. Attack. Each player reveals his hand, discards all cards with a cost of 2 or less. And then finally we end with the Anti-Monitor. 2 power, destroy any number of cards in the lineup, then replace them. I like how none of them get over like 3 power, so they have some pretty massive effects. They're not like, oh, I got this, also now I got 10 power and I can beat the villain the next turn, or like 6 power, like, they're pretty low power, but they get some other cool effects. Attack. Each player reveals his hand, chooses a card with a cost of 1 or greater, adds that card to the lineup. So that way the lineup can actually get bigger than the initial 5 cards it's supposed to be, and they all have the same backs. Alright, then the last thing there would be is they're going to come with little VIP tokens. Which I actually 100% don't remember if the base set comes with these. I assume they would. And then I have other tokens for other games. That's just to keep track of your... no, I don't believe they come with that, because you just add up your VIP at the end. Those come with, I think, the villain set, because the villain set lets you gain or remove VIP throughout the game. Alright, so that was a DC Comics deck building game. The original base set. Check out the explanation video if you want to know a little bit more about all the different modes and stuff of this game. Or check out the other videos showing off the other base sets and expansions. See you guys later.